Getting up early in the morning in the summer and thinking you have nothing but topwater tied on is about as fun as I can think.
I mean, when it's hot, I love getting out there early and throwing something on top. I mean, it may not be the best way to fish. We don't have any idea, but at least you know that you get that adrenaline going and you might catch one on top.
Topwater fishing. That's the name of the game on this episode of the Bass Pro Shop's Fisherman's Handbook. Host Wade Middleton and professional angler Clark Wendlandt have traveled to North Texas during the summertime for a full day of fantastic fish catching fun. Valley Lake Ranch is loaded with shallow vegetation that presents great fish holding cover for the two anglers to target with a variety of topwater baits.
But you got started anyway.
Oh, yeah. Take long. Like I said, 1 or 2 bites of topwater, you feel like sometimes you've had a pretty successful day. Topwater fishing to me is something that, I mean, even as a little kid, you just could not get enough of it. You know, the image of tossing a bait out there and you're twitching it and pausing it or fishing it real fast, and you know, you just feel like you're going to get a bite at any time. You throw it by a tree, you throw it by a lily pad, you throw it by some grass, or throw it out in a whatever, and you're watching it and you're so zoned in on it, and then when one blows up, it's all chaos.
That was a pretty big one.
You know, topwaters are probably the category of bait that anglers like fishing more than any other. It doesn't matter what time of year it is, if the water temperature is warm enough, so the water temperature, usually for me, it's going to be 60 degrees or higher. If the water temperature is warm enough, then I'm going to start off with topwater. And the great thing about topwater is you can get a lot of bites on it, and you can also get bigger.
Oh, I got it. That was a good one.
I kind of had to wait on that one just a little bit.
You did. You were pretty patient. And now that's a good tip. You got all the topwater, you miss a lot. People jerk too soon.
They do. He got it good.
He did. Clark and I obviously get to fish together a lot at different times of the year. And for me, it's always an eye-opening experience because we actually fish, we both like to cover a lot of water. We're both very aggressive in how we fish, but to watch what he fishes in the same situation where I'm at. And you know, when I fish with him, I look at it totally different. You know, I'm obviously having a lot of fun fishing with a good friend, but every time I go, I'm trying to pick up on the little subtleties. You'll even hear me offline a lot of time, what rod are you throwing and why? Because we both use the same rod manufacturers at Bass Pro Shops, and there's like, gosh, I don't know, 50, 60 different models. Well, I want to know what he's using in all those situations to present a bait, because at the end of the day, it helps me learn every time I go fishing.
Most of the fish I caught on topwater today were on a 7-foot carbon light and actually a medium action, not medium heavy, because the braid has no stretch in it. Now, if that, you know, most of the fish we caught were in pepper grass, if that grass would have been a little heavier and I would have really needed more muscle pulling them out, I probably would have had to go to a medium heavy. But for the most part, throwing a medium action rod.
Well, hey, I just throw I got a little hole up there. I bet I can get one on there.
Good call. That's a pretty good call.
They just like this bait better.
They like that better. That clacking noise, you think?
I think so.
I'm gonna tie me one on that makes a clacking noise here in just a second.
It's time now for our first break in the show. On the other side, we'll continue bringing you more great Texas topwater action from Valley Lake Ranch. Don't go away.
Right there.
You talk to those old timers, and I mean, they were all about just getting a few bites back in the day on topwater.
I still like it in the morning. You know, a lot of times the fish are going to be out deep and on structure, but for me, I mean, and I almost always are going to start with some kind of topwater early. It just feels right to me.
Yeah. You know, for me, early in the morning, in the summertime especially, that's the, you know, I'm drawn to my topwater box, whether it's a popper or whether it's a frog or a walking bait, whatever it may be. You know, I want to get one tied on, I want to cover some water, and if I can get 2 or 3, 4 bites on it, I'm going to be pretty excited. And if I can get more than that, it's a pretty special day. That was pretty classic looking. Yeah. Okay. Hey, don't tear up my frog there, sucker. There. That's about as pretty. Clear water, no wind. He just... You know, when you start looking at cover and how the fish will set up on it, it's so unique and so different, and you know, you always have to figure it out. And you know, Clark today, he's got a handful of different baits that are all topwater that are totally different than mine. And as we run down the bank in different situations, you notice one of us will have a stretch where they catch 4, 5, 6, you know, fish, and the other one might only catch 1 in there. And it's, you know, a lot of times it's just that area is more in tune for that type of bait. It sets up a little better for it, and the fish are more reactive to it.
You're kind of thinking, all right, well, what bait's going to get the most bites, but also what bait can you fish through it?
Yeah.
You know, because it's got that scattered grass. So, you know, in this situation, you're kind of throwing a little bit of a flapping frog, and I'm actually able to get this patrol or plopper style bait through it just fine.
It'd be hard to throw like a true popper in this, or even a walking style bait. There's too much stuff in there. And there's too many hooks hanging out, probably get hung up in once you stick one. Right where it should have been.
Yeah, we're right where you called it.
Right where he should have been.
It's funny, Wade, you know, what you saw with your eye there was just maybe a little slack place in the grass where there wasn't that much grass, kind of on the inside edge of that. And a lot of times topwater fish, that's where you'll catch them.
Yeah. I mean, there was just a perfect little hole, little channel right there.
You know, topwater is such a different way to catch fish than literally every other way, because you actually visually see the fish bite the bait. Sometimes you'll see them come out of the water, come down on top of it. Sometimes it'll be an explosion from underneath. Sometimes they just slurp, and sometimes it's a huge explosion. Literally every fish we had today, you're thinking, man, that's gonna be a 5 to 6 pounder, because that's the way they bite. They're so aggressive.
That's a better one. I mean, he just slurped it, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
Why does every fish that bite a topwater look so big?
I don't know, they just are. Well, and it is a good one. I mean, it's not little, but it looks, everyone looks like a 5 pounder.
That will never get old. Doesn't matter what species it is. When they bite on topwater, that will never get old. This is not for the faint of heart. You better have braided line. You know, fishing line is something in topwater that really, I think that people probably need to really pay attention to. There's lines that are really designed for certain baits. They're gonna help maximize your presentation, the action of your bait, and your ability to get those fish out of cover. And then there are other lines that it's just not going to work in that situation. I'm not saying you can't land a fish in there, and I'm not saying you can't use it, but I truly believe in those situations, your percentages of landing a fish go down.
So the old standby was throwing a topwater on monofilament, and then braided line came along. Well, those two both float. Fluorocarbon sinks, so don't throw a topwater on fluorocarbon, because it'll actually sink your topwater. There's a couple of them you can get away with it on, but for me, it's either going to be braid or mono or some combination of both of them.
For me, monofilament, I mean, I'm kind of still an old throwback guy to monofilament in certain situations. I love to throw a popper on monofilament, especially in that 10 to 12 pound range out over open water. But if I'm fishing around any kind of vegetation, that's a pretty risky scenario. Monofilament stretches. I mean, it's not going to allow me to handle any type of fish that gets down in the grass. And so when I get in those situations, braided line. 20 pound, 40 pound, 60 pound, 80 pound braid. I like Sunline. I mean, it is so castable. They've got several different models of line that really allow you to be able to present a mix of baits out there into the cover. Gah!
It was just sitting there, wasn't it?
Yeah,
or was it not?
I was trying to pick out a little backlash.
He wouldn't let you?
No. Get him. God.
Here, put those poles down right now.
Yeah, we'll get him. Got him, he's on there. That is too cool. I could see that fish with your bait going down in his mouth.
You were like, Clark, you got it.
I find myself looking at your bait instead of my own.
Well, and I look at yours a lot.
It's funny how that works when you're topwater fishing. You're just kind of following everything.
Well, and the thing about it is if the guy in the boat, if somebody decides to throw a topwater and you're not throwing a topwater, well, you're really going to pay attention to their bait.
Yeah, it's just mesmerizing.
So when thinking about topwater baits, there's a lot of different classes of them. There's poppers, go back and forth, or they'll spit water out in front. There's walking baits that just totally go back and forth. Frogs. There's flapping baits that are either frogs or kind of a soft plastic that you reel over the top of cover. There's buzz baits, there's plopper style baits, there's prop baits. So there's all different kinds of classes of topwater, and every one of them can have their place in bass fishing.
Colors for topwaters, I'm pretty basic a lot of times. I mean, I probably have caught 100 fish on that flapping frog now, that darker color one. I haven't untied it because it hasn't quit working. You know, a lot of guys are gonna throw a white one in and around the shad spawn. Different bluegill type colors work great. When you're throwing walking baits, I mean, if you really watch a lot of people, they're throwing a bone colored or white colored walking baits a lot. You'll see guys throwing clear baits a lot of times to mimic little bait fish. I mean, you just kind of have to mix it up. I mean, bluegill type hues and colors are going to be popular at different times. There's a reason why there's a lot of different colors out there for a lot of different lakes. You just got to kind of build confidence with one. You need to kind of match the hatch what the bait fish are for a particular specific body of water. And once you get confidence in a bait, it's just funny how you catch more fish and you fish that bait better. He gave you like 2 chances, didn't he?
Yeah.
See, now I don't have a walking bait tied on. Isn't that funny?
I bet you get one on
I
that.
bet I get one tied on pretty quick because they're not eating this. They like that big old rattle. One behind it now. Doesn't take me long to tie one on.
We've kind of committed to topwater on the day because we like it. You know, it's the early morning deal, but it's interesting how the different cadences, you know, when we started one way and then we switched a little bit and we switched again and now you've slowed your bait down and it's getting you a few bites in it.
I think you got to adjust all the time. Different styles, different baits. I mean, that's why there's so many different options. You get locked in. I mean, there's times, obviously, you can get locked in, but you gotta mix it up. I mean, we've been fishing side by side, throwing really 2 different styles of bait the majority of the day. I've got more confidence in this, you have more confidence in that.
Yeah.
And so when we get around the right water for that style with the other one catch, either I catch them or you catch them.
Yeah. God, that was a great bite. I mean, you were barely moving.
Barely moving it. And he bit, that's really all the line I had out right there. I mean, this doesn't make a ton of sense to be winding a frog like this right down a rocky bank.
Yeah, it doesn't, but I mean, the proof's in the pudding.
Yeah, the proof's in the bites. There he goes. Every bite. Ferocious. I think some of that has to do with the lack of pressure, the way they manage this lake too.
After the break, we take a closer look at Valley Lake Ranch. This body of water in north central Texas is managed to produce both great quality and quantities of bites. Stay tuned to find out what makes this such a great fishery.
God, I mean, when they eat this,
Yeah,
bait,
he ate that one.
it is down in their throat. There's a lot of different lakes, and a lot of different people go fishing for a lot of different reasons. There's guys that are really hardcore into tournament fishing. There are guys that want to go out with their family and drown minnows. There are guys that are on business trips that want to take different people fishing, or two buddies that want to go, or a group of guys that want to get out and go. And you can go to somebody's lakes and you can hire a guide, and you know, you're going to have some good days out there. But when you get on a heavily pressured public lake, it can make fishing pretty tough. So when you can find places like the Valley Lake Ranch here, it's specifically set up for a guy that is looking to catch fish, to get bites. And a lot of it is based on the management aspect of it, but it's also based on the rotational resting of the property. Speaking from experience, I mean, when I used to run the 777 Ranch, we would rest lakes consistently. We would actually write up a list of what lakes you could go to at different times. This body of water, which is, you know, just right at around 1,200 acres, allows you to, you know, not fish it a lot. You know, there's only a couple of boats ever going to be out here at a time, unless it's probably a big group, and you can tell, you know, how aggressive some of these fish strikes are because of that resting. And it sets up great for a guy that wants to go get some bites and have a chance to catch a big one. Got it. He got it that time. I'm in the way.
I think that other fish is bigger. I mean, I could see part of his body.
Yeah.
It's a good one, man. That first bite was just amazing. Wade has not stopped even looking at my fish.
Oh, that's a nice one.
Look.
It's a dandy.
That was a good bite. You know, it's really interesting because just about anywhere I go now, I walk into, you know, a show like the Classic, or I walk into ICAST, or I walk in, you know, hey, I'm at a gas station and somebody comes up and starts talking to me. Hey, they ask me where's Wade at? Because people associate us being in the boat together, having fun and catching fish. And, you know, it's a great thing for both of us. We both realize, I mean, I typically always know where he's at. He typically always knows where I'm at. A lot of times he's doing something business or shooting. I'm doing something in tournaments, but we love to get together and at least get one show, shoot one show a year. And this opportunity came up and we were both like, heck yeah, let's do it. And matter of fact, when the opportunity came up to fish Valley Lake Ranch, he said, man, how about a topwater show? And I mean, he knows my favorite way to catch them is probably topwater, and his favorite way to catch them is probably topwater. So, I mean, we were both like, heck yeah, let's go get this done.
Now we got it, he's a little better. Gosh, boy, I thought he was going to be 4 pounder.
He hit it big.
Well, I watched him bite it and would have lied about him being a 4 pounder. He comes, oh, you got it. Yeah, I did too. Clark's hooked up behind me. There's no love for my fish because he's hooked up and got one.
Mine's not big, even though it looked big. It was fun though.
You throw them in the slop like that, they all look good. I mean, that's absolutely.
That's right.
I mean, that's just about as fun as you're gonna find. Aggressive bites.
I mean, our topwater morning that we thought was gonna be so good was pretty good.
Pretty good. About as good as it can get right there. I mean, just.
And with that, we will conclude this episode of the Bass Pro Shops Fisherman's Handbook. We hope you enjoyed seeing some great topwater action. and learned a few things that will help you catch more fish. This has been a Carico TV production.